Elect Donald Trump's move to shut down his charitable foundation to avoid a conflict of interest could be hitting an unexpected wall.
And it comes in the form of an ongoing investigation. KCAL9 political reporter Bryan joins us now with word on why shutting down this foundation may be easier said than done, Dave.
Yeah, and to make things even worse, the clock is ticking, right? There's only a little while now before Mr. Trump will become president. With the inauguration of President-elect Donald Trump less than 4 weeks away now, the Trump team is scrambling to address potential conflict of interest issues with the Trump Organization and the Trump Foundation after he's sworn into office. But simply closing down the foundation appears to be off the table, at least for right now.
I give a lot of money to people and charities and everything. I love people.
Just like its namesake, the Donald J. Trump Foundation is no stranger to controversy, which has escalated now that he's about to become president. The foundation has largely carried on with other people's money. According to foundation tax filings from 2009 to 2014, Trump made 0 donations of his own money to the foundation during those years, and the foundation has no paid staff. And CBS News reports that last year, the foundation admitted to a practice known as self-dealing, using the charity for one's own benefit, a violation of IRS rules. A Washington Post investigation found that the foundation spent nearly $260,000 to settle legal problems unrelated to the charity, and separately bought a huge portrait of Trump. The president-elect recently announced he'll dissolve the foundation. He said the foundation has done enormous good works over the years in contributing millions of dollars to countless worthy groups. However, to avoid even the appearance of any conflict with my role as president, I have decided to continue to pursue my interest in philanthropy in other ways. But New York's Attorney General says, what's the rush? He said the Trump Foundation is still under investigation by this office and cannot legally dissolve until that investigation is complete. Experts agree that under the circumstances, dissolving the foundation will be neither quick nor easy.
You need to make sure the foundation is completely independent of your for-profit business enterprises. You cannot have self-dealing in foundations. And I don't know whether the rules were violated here or not.
And the foundation is just a small part of the bigger issue, which is how Trump will separate himself from the for-profit Trump Organization to prevent more serious conflicts of interest. A worldwide empire that includes Trump golf courses, international realty, the Trump winery, and Trump hotels. The law doesn't demand that a president separate themselves from their business interests, but in this case, there are many potential conflicts, not the least of which is a clause in the Constitution that bars elected officials from accepting any present or money from foreign governments or leaders, like money for staying in a Trump hotel or renting workspace at a Trump tower.
Right now, we need to have a president who is free of conflict of interest. That means dissolving the foundation. That also means President Trump selling off his business interests that create conflicts of interest, making sure there's no foreign government money coming into his operations.
Now, the Washington Post reports tonight a prime example of potential conflicts for Trump would be in China, which he called an enemy of the United States. But at the same time, his hotel chain has been trying to do business in China for the past 8 years, hoping to open 20 to 30 hotels there. That would involve direct negotiations with the Communist Party, which Trump claims he does not trust. Potential conflict of interest, Lena, certainly seems to be a possibility.
Yeah. All right, Dave, thank you.